Right, welcome everyone. We'll kick off some quick intros while people are still walking in. This is the AI Bootcamp session. Now, first I see some familiar faces, but probably not everyone knows me. So my name is Dilyan Kovachev. I learned the machine learning and analytics team at Treasure Data. And what my team does is helps customers deploy machine learning models and reporting dashboards for different marketing use cases, but not just marketing. I mean, there is, use cases are now growing, as you've all heard Kaz and other customers mention that they're trying to do a lot more with the business insights and the data that's here. Now, AI Bootcamp sounds kind of like a technical, and I actually want to assure you that this is I want this to be a lot more conversational and a lot more like a discovery session than like a formal training. But I will start with like a few slides just to set the stage, and then hoping that we can get into more of a conversation pretty soon. So I think just to set the stage, obviously there is some people here, I'm sure in this room, that are somewhat technical. Others might be just marketers. There's also people that have more like knowledge of AI and know what they want to do, but also there's a lot of people that just hear that everyone's doing AI and they don't know where to start, but clearly they understand it's valuable and they have a lot of customer data, and they're like, where do we start? So let's start with the where do we start question. And I think the way to think about like machine learning and AI is that I mean, you can get a lot of value out of it from just enhancing like marketing decisions with more intelligence, improving speed and like operational efficiency of internal team operations and things like that. But how do you decide where to start? I would say first it's about a combination of like education and communication. So you want to understand what's possible, and then you kind of want to link that to specific pain points that you have in your organization that you think the data that you have, and adding that to some machine learning intelligence or analytics intelligence can solve different pain points that your organization is experiencing. So usually this is like defining what use cases to start with and where to start. Is a combination of different teams. So I think you might be like a marketing team that is responsible for like one channel or a specific type of product, and you might have idea of some use cases, but you're not really sure like what data is needed or what data is available in the CDP. That's where you might want to make sure that you include like someone that's more technical, data engineers. You want to make sure that you're aligned with, okay, what we're trying to do, is it possible with the data? First, you want to make sure that like all the things are in place for the use case that you have in mind. So it's basically like a timeline like this. First, like I said, you think about some of the pain points, some of the problem you're trying to solve. Then you talk to people to understand, do we have all the things in place? I mean, it could be my team, like a lot of customers come straight to my team and are like, what customers in the same industry with the same data, with the same pain points, what models work for them? So that's part of like the discovery process. Once kind of the plan is aligned, I do recommend to have a clear idea of like, like I said, what data is needed, who are the right people to execute this project, what is the goal, what are some of the KPIs that, or like improvement that you're trying to do with some of these use cases, and then how do we measure that? So these are, I think, pieces you want to have in place, and then again, that's going to be a combination of business users with some technical users, because to be able to set all that up and automate it, you need some technical help, but you as a marketer and as a business decision maker can drive the what you want to see, how you want to see it, how to set up the problem. Yeah, I kind of covered this, so I just want to go into a quick, this is something we can share with you too, but this is kind of like just an example matrix of how you can just think of some of the more popular models, and then the different use cases that are kind of pretty common across many industries. Lookalike models, propensity to churn type of models, propensity to buy, how to optimize marketing campaigns and budgets, how to find meaningful audiences, what customers to target, what messages to target them with. There's certain models that can serve multiple functions. They could assist with multiple campaigns. There are some models that are specific just to one type of use case, but work really well for it. So before we, kind of start exploring some of the individual use cases and models that we can start discussing more specifically, are there any questions on just the original discovery and framing the problem and bringing the right people into place that you might have questions around that? Or is that pretty clear on how to kind of define that? Make sense? Okay, cool. You have a question? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, you can say that. But we can get into some specific use cases. It's more around not so much changing the parameters, but you can run both models, and then the outputs of the models might solve for different aspects of a use case. Or, for example, what did you say? The clustering and then the linear regression. So clustering, let's go to this slide. So I think this will make a little more sense. So another thing I advise customers to think about where machine learning models might be useful because when I look at this, I think it makes sense, but sometimes it might be overwhelming. It still might be too many things, where do I start? So again, let's go back to the framework. First, I always say, try to start simple. So going back to defining the problem pain points, try to pick some pain points where you think with minimal effort, you can get maybe maximum results, because that's always the best, what people call the quick wins or low-hanging fruit. So, and there's three kind of umbrellas where I think you can think about machine learning helping you as a marketer get a lot of value out of your data once in CDP. So first, it might be that you're coming in and you know what channels you're in charge of, maybe email marketing or whatever, with certain journeys, and you know what kind of budgets you have, but you're not really sure what the best audiences are with all the data that you want to target with some of these campaigns. So I say first, when the data is in, maybe you want to do something with audience discovery. So we have a couple of models. RFM is one, which helps you quickly just get your whole population and put them in very useful buckets of users with different business characteristics that I think, I'll show you the dashboard in a second just to give some context, but quickly helps you understand okay, which are the audiences where I want to spend more money on, which are the audiences that I need to are lower in the funnel, and I just should maybe run some cheaper ads and until they finally register or do something more meaningful. I don't want to try to spend too much time on them. And there's a lot of nuances. There's the propensity models. They're good for, I said, discovering propensity to churn, propensity to buy, lookalike audiences on some audiences that you can build an audience studio and are who else is likely to do that. Once you kind of feel you have an understanding of some of the audiences that you want to build and target, another aspect of adding intelligence to some of your marketing and business initiatives is how do we target users? What is the best personalized message or an offer to send them? What product recommendation should we send them? So there's some models like Next Best Product, which is a recommendation engine, which a lot of customers use. There is Next Best Action, which that is a pretty flexible one that basically can be next best offer, can be next best channel, next best time, next best content. But the idea of this model is that you can set a KPI or a marketing goal, whether it's conversion or engaging with the content and subscribing to something or providing an email in a newsletter so you can convert someone from unknown to known. You can optimize the model towards that event, which is going to tell you that depending on where the customer is in their journey, what is the next best offer or personalized message to send to increase the likelihood of them converting or engaging. And there's more models, but again, I want to keep it simple because I want to hone in on the if you're starting try to start simple. Machine learning can get pretty nuanced and complex, but if you try to solve it all at once or do too much at once, it would take longer to actually like get things in action and prove the value in the real world. So to me, it's always with customers, like, you know, until they see it, like once they see the value and see it working, they're like, it's much easier to get more stakeholders on board, get more teams to do stuff in treasure data, set up more advanced models, spend more time on adding like machine learning to your like initiatives. And so the last piece that I think is very important as well is measurement, which is more of a analytics than machine learning, but basically what you want to measure is the effect that all the machine learning that you're using has on your things you're trying to improve. So those pain points that we talked about, let's say the pain point that you're starting with is that a lot of your users, once they buy once, you know, you don't have many repeat purchasers, right? So then you decide, okay, I have this audience of like highly engaged buyers, but they haven't like bought in 6 months or more, and like I want to make them repeat purchasers. So maybe you go with some kind of an express product offer with some discount. And once you set that up, of course, you want to make sure that that audience is actually clicking on these offers and converting, and you can see the effect of the machine learning model on increased conversion. So you would want to make sure they also think about how to measure that. So segment analytics is one dashboard that is pretty useful for that, because it can link any metric that you want to track to audiences, build an audience studio, and start comparing performance over time. I'll show you like a template of it a little later, but just kind of setting up the framework. Multi-touch attribution is another pretty popular model, which measures more the performance of specific channels and campaigns, not at the necessarily at the like audience level, but at the general campaign level and channel. So again, whatever you're doing with machine learning, maybe you're sending emails and you're calling that campaign something specific. MTA can show like how many conversions are attributed to that specific email from that campaign, and you can know that, you know, there has been a good impact on that campaign from all the intelligence you're piping from treasure data. So any questions on just kind of like those general umbrellas? And I think I would like to hear, in terms of audience discovery and optimizing marketing campaigns and personalization, if there are any other specific areas in your business or initiatives where you also are thinking that you might want to explore some ML. So yeah, if anyone in the room like has a, you know, you don't, like again, you don't have to get specific about the details of your business, but I'm just curious around like pain points, or where you as a marketer or you as like a business decision maker, where you're hoping that the unified like rich data can use like some machine learning intelligence to kind of help your day-to-day or like solve certain pain points. So anything else that you can think of? Yeah.
Thank you. So we were thinking of using like unsupervised learning, so something like auto segmentation,
right,
to identify different personas of customers, paying customers for our particular business. So we sell cemetery plots. Like we want to be able to see how many different personas we can identify under cemetery purchasers.
Yeah. So yeah, auto segmentation is a pretty advanced but very like powerful use case. We've deployed that for a few customers, and that's where a lot of aha moments happen. So it's basically you can feed any attribute and behavior, any characteristic you have, CDP, and you can do unsupervised, which is you let the model find the most distinctive audiences, and then you use some analytics. There's actually a dashboard, so maybe I'll show you like an example. Or you can do semi-supervised, which is where you as a marketer can say, okay, I want to discover audiences, but I want the model first to focus on like specific characteristics. So like maybe email clicks, purchases, maybe you want to first get an audience, make sure it finds an audience that like converts often after like an email campaign or an email offer, and like have high conversion rate. and then the model can like make sure to discover all these users, and then it will like discover other random audiences. But our segmentation model, even though like some of the build up, and this is where my team helps, or like your machine learning team will build, some of the building initially is like relatively complex. We've tried to simplify the final outputs to a dashboard like this. So what you're looking here right now is that, you know, we build we ran our segmentation model on like a parent segment population with a bunch of attributes I'll show you in a minute. And the model basically discovered 3 distinctive audiences that things are very different and specific. And I want to focus on the red audience because that's like, we've seen that come up with customers as well. Even though you're looking at like a mock data set, I've seen this also come up with customers, like a similar cluster. So basically what our segmentation model here discovered is that there is a good amount of promising customers that are currently not getting any product recommendations. And so when you build this model, there is like a dashboard like this, where again, if you're slightly analytical, you should be able to read this, but I'll try to kind of explain it simply. Here, I don't know how visible they're on the screen, but these are all the attributes that went into the model. They're like part of the parent segment and the data you've brought in. And what this model tells you is that the higher the value of this attribute, so the bigger green line you see here, the more likely they are to belong to this segment or cluster. And the higher the red is on the left side, then the less likely they are to be in this cluster. So what we start observing here is that these are users who are part of the promising RFM segment. And the promising RFM segment is basically people who engage a lot, click on emails, go to the website, have done it relatively recently, so the product is top of mind, but they don't have that many purchases. And you can also see that these people have contacted customer support, they have a lot of email events, they have a lot of web events, they do a lot of search and land on the web page. So interest in the product for sure, engaged, but you can see that next best product category, there's like, you know, basically no bar, so like they don't have any recommendations, and they're not currently like getting targeted by campaigns that are trying to have them to buy. So why do we have this segment? I mean, these people are engaged. Why are we not sending recommendations? So this happens when people have recommendation engines that rely on having a previous purchase to actually say people who have bought this might also like so and so. It's called the cold start problem, and some of the ways to solve the cold start problem is that you want to insert some kind of a business rule and say people without recommendations, people who haven't bought anything, let's just pick the most popular product or like the products that are trending, and just to all these people just send that and see who buys. So this was a way for a customer to discover, oh, whatever we're doing with our recommendation email strategy, we're actually missing a lot of value because we're not sending recommendations to people who are likely to engage. And you know, a lot of useful other like observations can come, but I think that's one example that is easy to understand. So I'm curious if anyone else in the room has thought about using some kind of like an automated audience discovery, or what other pain points should we talk about? I mean, there's like I said, there's audience discovery. There's like what channel should we reach a customer on, or like I definitely want to like start a conversation, and I think that's also the value of people in the room is I can definitely give you more examples, but I think it's also cool to learn people from different industries, how they're thinking about even framing like where can we plug in ML, or what are some of the pain points. Yeah.
So in terms of like framing the prompt statement for the solution, a lot of attributes here. Is
Yeah.
there like a minimum threshold? Like if you don't have this much, it's probably not gonna, you know, have enough of test data.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, I mean, this specific model has gone through a few iterations. You don't really need always a lot of attributes. So, for example, I'll show you that there is this other segment, which is basically high-value customers that have ordered across multiple product lines, and if you click on that, you can see for this cluster actually only about a handful of attributes are important. It's their total spend, the distinct items ordered, the total orders, the distinct categories ordered. So you don't necessarily need a lot, but the more you have for this type of model specifically, it doesn't hurt to feed it more and more, because this type of model really finds the relationships between every attribute for every user, and the more you have, the job of this model is to put people in the same cluster that are as similar as possible and also as different as possible from people in any other cluster. So the more information you have, the more nuance this could add, but you can start with 10 attributes and just see what the output is, and if the output doesn't make much business sense, or if the audiences are not nuanced enough, you can think of what else you can add. Yeah.
Depending on the channel, obviously the metrics and KPIs are going to be different, but then we still want to have like an understanding of the white set. Is it okay that some of my attributes might not have any data for certain records, but I just want to do like a homogeneous mix, a paying segment, but I might not have all the data populated for?
Yeah, it's definitely not expected that for every attribute, every customer will have a, it's not necessary. We have a way the model handles like no values. There's a few approaches you can use, but for example, one thing you can just do is that you can say that if a certain cluster, like I said in this example, actually for example I get a lot of the promising customers without product recommendations, their next best product, next best category was on no, but that was an important information that tells you these people are engaged, there's a lot of potential, but none of them got recommendations. So having a no actually was was part of the model learning. So sometimes having no value could make sense with how the rest of it, and then that could have a light bulb of like, why is that data not exist? I mean, it could be many reasons, but it's still meaningful. So it doesn't matter if you have some missing values for some of the users. Yeah. So like you said channel, so it could be something else. That's actually also happened with the customer. It's like, another audience I remember was discovered as like these really high value like audiences, but they were only being engaged in person with like during events and in-person meetings. But then the model found similar audiences in terms of other attributes. Like I can't go into detail of the customer data, but found a very similar segment that was just as meaningful, but they actually get targeted. Not just they get targeted via email and like other ads, and it showed that audience has much higher like conversion rates and engagement rates. So what that customer discovered is that, that's because this specific business unit is owned by like a siloed team, and they don't want to do any like paid media and other stuff. They believe in just like in-person meetings. But then we showed them that a similar audience where we add like some email targeting, whatever, it shortens the journey to conversion. So they actually combine our segmentation model with multi-touch attribution model, where they were doing the analysis at the segment audience level and at the channel level. And they could show that the journey for the people with richer like channel targeting, they're shorter, they're converting quicker. And so they were able to go internally and say, we shouldn't limit these people to just like talking in person and maybe like a follow-up call, or like we should, when they're on the website and they're looking at the product, we should be sending that like pop-up to do something, or like we should be sending them email updates on similar products coming out, so that, because we know that they would also engage on other platforms. We're just currently not doing that. Yeah. So let's go into, I want to talk a little bit about RFM model. I think that's, for me, that's like the quickest win any customer can do if they don't know where to start. So let's just like, let me demo that, because it's pretty universal across most industries. And so what's required for this model? I mean, if you have any type of behavioral data, you're good. If you just have page views data, it's fine. But most customers at minimum have like web activity, email activity, and some kind of transaction history. I mean, it doesn't, maybe your transaction for your business, maybe it's not necessarily a purchase, but maybe like the campaign you're running is like having someone request a quote for like a insurance policy or obviously eventually sign up for insurance, but it might be a campaign that just tries to get them to start a mortgage application or something like that. And you can set that as like your conversion event. The other two metrics would be recency and monetary, recency and frequency. So recency is how many days ago they last engaged with the brand from all the activity tables you're bringing. Frequency is how many total engagements they have across these different behavior tables that you're bringing. So once the model runs, it basically automatically buckets people in these like 8 to 10 different audience types. This dashboard is also like automatically built, so you can first understand what % of your population falls in each category. There's a business description of each category. So top customers is an easy example, is people who buy most frequently, they bought recently, and they've spent the most. So if we go a little bit, there's these quartiles for each of these metrics, recency, frequency, and monetary, that based on what quartile you fall in for each metric, it will put you in different buckets. And so the champions is people that are in the top quartile for each of these metrics. So their average spend is the highest if you just go across this metric. Their recency is 18, which means they've engaged with brand 18 days or less. So many of them engaged like yesterday, the day before, but no more than 18 days. And they have frequency, which is total touch points, like 300 plus, so much higher than all the other populations. And then you might have someone like promising, which came up in the earlier example with the auto segmentation, where promising people, for monetary, they don't spend that much. There's some people who buy there, but most importantly, these are people who do engage a lot and have engaged relatively recently. So again, if we go to their metrics, we see the average spend is 55, pretty low to most of the like high value audiences. But recency is only 30 days or less, so they've engaged with the brand relatively recently, and they have the second highest amount of touch points. So they're actually spending a lot of time with the brand, opening emails, maybe going to the website, talking to customer support, whatever like data we plug in this model. So highly engaged, that's where the huge opportunity for a lot of brands is. Like if you're looking for some quick wins of discovering valuable audiences and increasing revenue. So I want to show this through a different slide, just because it's a little bit easier to understand. So let's look at this slide, because I think it would make sense to whether you're a marketer or a technical user. So once the model is built, I'm just kind of using like average metrics of what I've seen across different customers. These can definitely vary, but usually you would see between 10 to 20% of customers fall in these high value audiences. These are the champions, the loyalists, the customers you don't want to lose. So, the Pareto principle, everyone who's like analyzed their customer transaction data knows like 80% of profits come from 20% of users usually. So that high value audience is this. These are people that, you definitely want to nurture, you don't want to lose them, you want to keep them buying and things like that. But they're just going to make sure that your revenue stays high, but you're not going to gain like, a lot of like new, significantly like revenue growth. I think most of the potential that, customers who build this model like quickly realize that there's a huge opportunity here. You have around 40% of customers who are in this promising category, which, like I said, they're engaged, they're like clicking on a lot of ads, they're definitely like brand is top of mind. For some reason, they haven't purchased yet. So these are the people that you want to start moving here. And this is a lot of like new revenue potential, new customer acquisition comes from this category. And then there's always like a kind of a low value 30 to 40% audience. This model calls them hibernating or lost customers. These people's like recency is pretty low, like they probably haven't engaged with the brand in 6 months or more, something like that. And frequency is low as well, and they've never purchased. So these are people that most of the time you're probably wasting ad spend on. So you could use them as suppression lists. You could use them as, you could run some like maybe very minimal, cheap kind of prospecting campaign. Just hope that some of them might still catch and move up the funnel, but you're really not helping your marketing like ROI by spending too much time on them. So this gives you a clear idea of like where what does my general population look like? Where should I be spending my time? How should I be using these for campaigns? And you would have talked about measurement, so I just want to go from here quickly to measurement, because then if you do have your segment analytics dashboard as well, so I think I have it up right here. So again, if we go in Audience Studio, here now we have these RFM segments. I have built this high-value audience. It's as simple as this. Once the RFM model runs, you have this RFM segments attribute that you can basically find, you can drag it as a marketer, and you can say which populations you want to select. What I recommend is sometimes the champions is like a very small percent, right? 1%, 2%. Then you have loyalists, which might be another 7, 8%. I recommend creating this like high-value audiences segment, which gives you the promising, gives you the champions, the potential loyalists, the loyal customers, and the cannot lose them. And that would be that 15% that I showed you on the graph on the right. These are the people you want to make sure you like keep them nurtured, engaged, and then you might have another segment, which is your, so there's like a low-value customers, right? That would be where I've added the hibernating and lost customers. These you can use for suppression, etc. And then low spend campaigns. And then you have the new and promising customers, which is where a lot of revenue growth potential is. And we already kind of can see that in the average metrics, but if you do have segment analytics dashboard, which is a dashboard that allows you to actually track KPIs across different audiences over time. So basically, what you're looking here, just to set the stage, is the red line would be your promising audience. The blue line is the high-value customers, those 4 categories. And the green line is the low customers. So let's start understanding the revenue potential here. So you have a good amount of promising customers with average spend. Actually, you see decreasing over time, which is, instead of grabbing this opportunity, you keep losing more and more of them. So they drop off, like they engage with the brand, they click, but if you're not targeting with the right campaigns, the right promos, eventually they drop off. So we see this average spend decreasing while you're doing a good job nurturing your high-value customers. So maybe there's something in your marketing strategy or campaign which is spending a lot of time to nurture these high-value users, but is not spending enough time on these promising and new users. So there's so much revenue opportunity here. Just think about, let's take a quick example. So let's go with the 20, 40%. So let's say you have 1 million users, okay, 20% of them are the top spenders, and on average they spend $900. Okay, that's gonna be what, 2 million people times that. Let's just say that's like, I don't know, let's just say 1 billion revenue. But you have around 4 million people whose average spend is 200, but you could try and nurture them to a 400 average spend, 500. It's possible to get them up to these like high spending customers over time. So that's like a lot of ungrabbed revenue here, because it's 4 million people, even if you increase their average spend to like 100, that's like, 4 million times 100 is like 400 million, I guess, additional revenue. Again, if you're like a really large organization, that's possible, but you can think within the parameters of your organization, just say, okay, if I get 2 million, if I get 2 million people to like increase their average spend and buy more or get more people to move, you can actually measure the opportunity, like the revenue grab that you can generate using this dashboard. And the other thing that you can do with this dashboard is, so let's say you notice this and you decide in October, I'm going to start doing some personalized, more promotions to this audience. Over time, when this dashboard runs, what you're hoping is that this thing will start to trend up and like start going closer to these higher spenders. And this is where you can go back to internal stakeholders and say, like, you have all the tools in the CDP as a marketer to set up something, do some testing, and then go to internal stakeholders and see, look, we like grabbed a huge new like set of users where we increased the revenue, and this was all done with the things we discovered in treasure data and the campaigns we set up from treasure data. Sometimes maybe you get these insights and maybe you don't necessarily activate from treasury, but you just go communicate to these teams. So that earlier customer example, that team that was kind of working in a silo, they just went and told them, connected them with like the email team, and were like, let's draft some kind of email that we can follow up with after your in-person meetings just to make sure communication doesn't drop off. And then, that email was set up, and as long as you pipe in the email, open and click data, again, from the day you set that up in motion, you can start tracking that performance. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to hear from just anyone else with like specific pain points or things that they wonder if they're possible. I think, like I said, education is the most important part. So there's no stupid questions here. There's like absolutely no shame. This session is for you guys. So
I may have one of kind of like the art of the possible.
Yeah.
So in the situation of having a multi-brand implementation of CDP, let's say that brand X have a set of individuals that are not as engaged. They might be dying down, not engaging as much with that specific brand. Is there a possibility to look at that audience and see, hey, based on the data, the behavior that the individual has, that this could be a gold mine for brand X, another brand, another product, right? Is that possible to create such scenario to say, hey, for those that are inactive in one brand, but there's a potential in another brands because it's a, different product, different, items?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think one thing you could build for that is potentially a propensity model. So maybe you build a sample audience of people who have bought from brand A, and you build a segment. So let's just show how the propensity model works, because that's all built into the UI. So technically, even a marketer should be able to set this up if they have an idea of like what kind of audience they want to discover. But in this case, it's a propensity churn model, but the idea is that you build like a sample audience. So in this case, we're saying give us everyone who hasn't engaged with the brand in 6 months or more, and we're saying these are churn customers. Now, in your case, you might say, give me everyone who's bought, spend a certain amount with brand A, and then give me everyone who hasn't spent like anything with brand B, right? And so then you basically can train propensity model that is going to tell you the audience who didn't spend with brand B, how many of them are likely to spend with brand A. And you might discover that, 30% of these people actually are likely to spend with brand A. So why are we only sending them like content about brand B? Let's actually include them in some of the other like product campaigns and things like that. And then in addition to that, if that's successful, then you can go further, maybe build like out segmentation and try to find out like what characteristics are similar between the not buying from brand A and buying from brand B, to be like, okay, these are the things that actually make someone, why they're not spending with B. Could be like age, could be gender, it could be something else, but there's probably a reason for it, something like product preference or things like that. Yeah.
Can we abstract that to like next best product? Like if you just say end product and then use that model for his example.
If you next best product, how are you abstracting it?
It's a lot of basically is this cap of purchasing from brand X.
Okay.
There's also pretty high adjacency with the other brand.
Okay.
So he likes leather, he's got his shoes, he's bought 10 pairs, he's bought rocket, but he wants a gun. So that kind of data, would that fit in like a next?
Yeah, that's a cool idea. So next best product, most of the time, the way it works is it finds like based on item similarity from all the transactions, it tells you like people who buy product A often buy also product B, and that makes these products, I guess, similar in some way, even if they don't seem obviously similar. Maybe in a way they go together. So yeah, that's another way. Like you could, for example, build an next best product model, and then for a lot of people that don't buy from product B, you can see that actually the model is recommending product A for a lot of them. So again, next best product might confirm that based on their prior purchases and preferences, brand A is actually more suitable to them. So yeah. It just depends on what data you have and what relationships the algorithm finds in that data. But there's some surprising discoveries that happen sometimes, and that's actually like, you know, eye-opening for a lot of, especially like marketers. People don't necessarily spend a lot of time with the data, digging into the data. They might have some kind of a business expectation or something that they have seen in the past, but you know, trends change, preferences change, markets change, and when you have so much data, machine learning models are the best way to get signals out of the noise and tell you like, because if that stuff is in data and you have enough data, it's probably true, and there's probably a reason for it. When you're working with like, that's the power of like the CDP, just bringing rich data and high volumes, and the signals that come out of that, unless there's like some garbage or flaw in the data, which is also an important, more technical step that I don't want to talk about because I don't want to go too technical, but obviously like making sure the data is clean and good format before it goes in the model is important. Yeah. What are, for people in the room who think the organization can do more ML and should do more ML, what are some of the challenges that you are facing of why more ML is not being done and used by marketing teams?
Within our organization, it's the transition from the way that they're comfortable doing segmentation to this new way. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's the making that transition from what you're used to
Yeah.
and comfortable doing to feeling comfortable with this new way of approaching segmentation and targeting.
Right.
And just empowering them to, let's try and see how it turns out.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that. I mean, it usually does, like I said, initially it takes at least one like disruptor or someone who's more willing to go and like learn more. And I mean, like I said, once you do that first steps to do the education, learn what's possible, even if you're comfortable, if you learn about something that clicks to you and like makes sense with what you're doing, and you can see how this will improve your day to day. But so it does start with education. It does starts with like conversation, like now working in silos, and I think you know, bringing different teams to the CDP and different data from different like silos is yeah, bringing people together basically is the first step. That's why I started with that slide. And of course, in addition to that, we have a lot of like ways to enable customers. So okay, someone's very comfortable with the system. Seems like a little bit of a learning curve to start building journeys in treasury, whatever. We have a lot of ways to enable teams, but I think first and foremost is like finding a pain point that would just make these people who are comfortable understand that, okay, but I've always wanted to do this and now I can actually do it in some other system. Okay, I'm definitely like willing to try, because if it works, then it's gonna improve my KPIs, it's gonna make my life easier, things will happen faster, a lot, you know, less steps, less room for error, less red tape to get things done. So there's a lot of internal, like I said, ML and CDP in general, like in addition to actual ROI and KPI improvement, there's a lot of operational efficiency that comes with that, and help people, you know, like with the agents as well that are gonna get more and more on the platform. Like it can really just give you quickly the summary, the important information that in the past might have taken you like 3 Jira tickets to a data team and a week of waiting, and like by the time they get back to you, you've already, like the campaign's over and the opportunity is over. I mean, I used to work in digital marketing. I used to run marketing campaigns, and I wasn't like as technical back then, so I was relying on data teams. So that was actually part of the reason why I switched to machine learning and went and learned data science, because I was like, you know, it's too slow and I already know what I want to do with the data. I just need to acquire the tech skills. But now you have this, that's another reason why I joined Treasury Data, is because when I worked on the demand side, on the campaign optimization side, we didn't have things like CDP. So you had to rely on teams to bring that data, to give you the answer from different systems. Often that data was like misaligned, you know, this team measures this metric that way, that team measures this way, you compare it to metrics that are completely different, which metric can I trust? With a tool like that, bringing the teams together and making like one golden data layer, one source of truth, makes sure also that all the initiatives are like in agreement with each other and there's not like disconnect of how each team is doing stuff. So I think, again, like education and making sure you include a lot of people in the initial conversations, in the use case setup, in the validation of how we're going to measure stuff. Once you have that in place, you can get a lot of good things happen. Looks like we're near time, but I'm happy to take more questions if there are any. In addition to that, I mean, there's a lot of models that we didn't cover. So if you want to like continue your education journey, you can reach out to your treasure data, customer success manager, account exec. If you want to learn more about ML, how my team can help you set up some of these things. A lot of customers that don't have that much like technical resource in treasure data, but want to do a lot of that stuff. That's where my team can help. Talk to you. We know what questions to ask. We build this for so many customers. We ask you, do you have the right type of data? We ask about some business assumptions, what things you want to measure. Once we go through that discovery session, we can set things up for you, automate them, train your teams, how to use these outputs in Audience Studio, whether you want to build journeys, do A/B testing, you want to send that intelligence to some other platforms so other teams can do stuff with it. My team can help with all of that, so definitely reach out. And if you do have technical teams, then they should have the tools they need to actually be able to build some of these things in the platform. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for your time. Yeah, and hope you keep learning and you come up with some interesting uses, and you can see some value from the platform. With your data, but like I said, it doesn't have to be machine learning. Sometimes just starting with some simple insights and just like discovering some things in your data that can be useful. It doesn't have to be complex. Sometimes the quick wins are like the best wins, and yeah, some customers do a lot of like rule-based. It's not exactly machine learning, but they have rule-based models so that also work pretty well with them. So. Don't be afraid to test things out, and our platform has, I think, pretty flexible architecture and a lot of tools that can allow you to set up small tests. Not risk too much. If some of your teams are risk averse, like come up with a small test, prove the value. Then it's much easier to get budgets and approval once you show the value of a small test. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.